Hi, this is Dr. Ali Mugabel, and we're doing guidelines for effective technical presentations. There are some videos about how to do presentations, but we are focusing on technical presentations. The outline of our presentation will be like this. We'll start with the presentation organization and content. What should be in a technical presentation? When it comes to PowerPoint presentation, we'll look at the format, how to present figures and equations, tables, things to avoid. We'll look at speech delivery, the time of the presentation, how long should it be, and then we'll look at general tips and how to improve your presentation. And we will conclude with your input. We'll ask a few questions and we'll listen to your input. Presentation organization and content. What should be in a technical presentation? When you present your paper or the result of the research, usually you need to have some correspondence between your paper and the presentation. You should present the content of your research. It's usually a report or a final paper. So the content of the presentation, you should have a cover page where you have the paper title, research members. You should acknowledge people who worked with you. They might not be presenting, but you have to acknowledge them. You need to have the date on the cover page, and in addition to evaluations and the event where you present. Then in the second slide, usually we have the outline. And whenever you list the outlines, please avoid generic words like introduction, body, literature review, and then conclusion or results. Try to be more specific. In general, the generic words will look like this. We have introduction and the motivation, and then we have literature review, a bird view. It's good to have the literature review to show that you really know what's going on the field, even if it is summarized, and to link to your work and to show that there is some gap. Then you go on to your model, presenting the model of the problem, whether you have something to show. Usually you need a figure here. And then you go into your methodology. Is it experimental, simulation, statistical? You explain the methodology, the performance metrics, and how you perform your work. And then you go into results and analysis, where you present your results and the main conclusions. You'll conclude your presentation with a summary and main results, and then you go into recommendation for future extension. You should show how would this work would be extended. Now, as I mentioned, don't list these as is because these are generic. Would like to be more specific. For example, if you are looking for a solution for the coronavirus, you would say, for example, that methodology would be collecting samples or using machine learning or whatever technique you are going to use. But be more specific. These are the general trends. It's not good to have generic words in general. It does not show that this is really very specific. Now, here are some tips about PowerPoint presentations. If you look at this figure, there is something called death by PowerPoint. You can make it really killing, and you can make it very good, or you can make it just something that drives people to sleep. You have to be short and to the point. Use keywords in the presentation. Do not put full sentences. The flow of the presentation should be smooth, and there should be some continuity from one frame to another. There should be no sudden death, or there should be no disconnected ideas. Things should flow naturally. Okay, then use slide numbering to facilitate question and answers. You should have slide number like we are having here, so you can make question and answers much easier. Then headings, subheadings, logos should always appear in the same spot. For example, this heading, okay, in every slide should appear on the same place, otherwise it will create some discomfort. So one time the title is here, another time in the middle, going up and down. So try to use the same location for the headings in each frame. And then margins, fonts, and type of fonts, try to be consistent. So we don't use totally different sizes, different types of fonts. we should have some theme in the presentation. And if you have figures on the right, try to keep them on the right so that you make things easy for the audience. Now, the use of colors, I have seen the two extremes. So you can have very diverse number of colors, and you have to be reasonable, and you use colors to make the understanding easier. Make sure that you have light text on dark background, like we have here black on white background, or dark text on light background. We have here the dark text, which is the black. You can have the opposite, of course. You can have white on black. Just make sure the contrast is high. Then this is a very common mistake. Try to project your presentation, take 6 steps to the back and make sure, is it readable? If yes, then fine. Otherwise, you have to increase the font. Of course, nowadays we have zooming techniques. We can make things easy by zooming within PowerPoint. If you right click, then you have the option of zooming. But in general, these are the guidelines. Try to make sure that the text is large enough. Remember, we have people with different age, different capability who are going to attend your presentation. Know your audience. Okay, now since we are dealing with technical research, let's have few tips about presenting figures and graphics. So we can have figures and graphics. We'll combine them together. Okay, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Usually, if you start saying using your hand to describe things, you most likely need a picture. Usually I tell my students, whenever they stand up and present and then start moving and then waving with their hands, I tell them, whenever you start moving your hand, it means you should have a figure there to make things simple. Now, figures should not be crowded like the one we can see here. It's very crowded and people just watch and nobody would understand. It should be easy to read. Figures should be self-explanatory whenever possible, so people can look at them and get the idea without the need of you. Of course, you are there to explain, but make it self-explanatory. And then group similar figures together. If you can have one figure X and Y with multiple traces to make the comparison easy, that would be great. Instead of showing 5 figures, you can combine them together without being crowded. And then try to avoid having lots of figures in the same slide. For example, these are of course general rules. No more than 2 figures per page, no more than 4 colors on a chart. And then graphics should enhance the presentation. Ask yourself, would this make things easier, nicer, or otherwise it should not be there. Now, we talked about figures, and now time to talk about tables. Now, sometimes we have information. We mentioned that this information could be represented on a figure or on a table. So which one do we go for? We go for figures if the numbers, the exact numbers are important. So you want to show the exact numbers. This makes figures important. Second, when presenting a table, only highlight the main points. I'm not expected to go over this table here column by column. Just say that what is this table? This table shows the employment status in the United States in 2019. For example, it shows the disabled and the normal people and disabled. And it shows the female and male, men and women, and how is the distribution. And for example, here in the upper part of the figure, we're showing the number of people who are 16 years old and above. There are about 259 million. And this is the distribution between male and female, or men and women. And then in the lower part, we're showing the disability. Okay, how many men are disabled and how many women are disabled. And then, of course, we can show that these numbers are in thousands. So that's to say we have 14 million and then versus 16 million. Okay, so I'm not expected to go over the details unless there are some numbers to highlight, like this is the maximum or the minimum. Otherwise, we should just highlight the main ideas and leave the details if somebody had a question. By the way, this table is from the following source. Just I took this as an example with some crowded data to show that not everything in the table would be explained. Of course, we can also just extract the important information and show. But with this, we show that we have even more data for the readers if need be. Okay, now if you want to present equations, please do not explain all the variables and just the important ideas. Like for example, the electric field or the derivative of the energy is related to this and that. I don't need to say that dE by dt equal to dE sub E divided by T. So we do not read equations variables. I have attended some presentations where people would go like QAN equals to QX. Okay, that's not appropriate. You just want to give the idea and show the equations to show some technical depth of your work. All right. Okay, it's also, if you have some important variables, you can explain them on the side. Like E is this and D is that. So remember, you don't have to go over the equations, read them one by one. All right, so things to avoid in the presentation, otherwise people will get sleep. Avoid more than 8 bullets in one slide. Avoid auto-timing your presentation, because in real life things will not go as you do when you rehearse. Avoid whole paragraphs in just like this few bullets. Now these are just throwing some tips on the way. Now avoid noise animation, just like the one you have just seen. So there is no need to have noisy animations. They distract sometimes the attention of the audience. Now speech delivery. Now let's talk about how to deliver, points related to delivering the speech. First, have enough rehearsals, practice before. Second, watch timings. Okay, you have to be respectful to the timing. Usually in conferences, there is about 15 to 20 minutes limit. Thesis defenses and so on, usually there is a pre-expected time where you have to finish. So includes key issues and results only. If you are doing your PhD in 3-4 years and then you are given 40 minutes to present, then don't expect to say everything. Speak clearly, and then do not read your presentation. Don't go look at the slides and read one by one. It should be more than that. Otherwise, people would ask you to sit down and they will just take the lead. Do not speak to your slide. That's about eye contact. Don't look at the slides and then ignore the audience. Keep eye contact. These are related 2 points. And then relax, smile, and speak naturally. Okay, don't speak like a machine. Try to speak, relax, take it easy, smile, and speak naturally. Now, dress professionally. This is important because especially for undergraduate students coming from the sport class, if this is an important meeting, like your final co-op or summer training or so, you have to dress appropriately based on your culture or depending on whatever custom where you are. Now, presentation time. Okay, now this is just a hint that in the morning, audience are usually alert and early in the morning, and as they get close to the lunchtime, they will get less attention. They'll start thinking about their sugar level in their blood, and they need something to eat, so the attention will be a little bit different. In the afternoon, people after eating lunch, they will be very sleepy or sleepy. They will feel sleepy. Mid-afternoon, you might need to have some coffee or tea. Mid-afternoon, people start to get energized again. And in the evening, people are attending out of interest. Usually presentations at the evening, usually people attend out of their interest. And long presentations are not recommended unless necessary. So in the evening, you notice that people will be more focused, attentive. Right. Now, how long should your presentation be? Okay, the number of slides, I'm just giving a generic rule. The number of slides, okay, is related to the time in minutes. So if we have, for example, in my case, I have 16 slides, the time for the presentation should be from half to double. So for 16 slides, the minimum time, roughly is 8 minutes, and the maximum time is 32 minutes. So we have the red lower bound, and then we have the blue upper bound. For the red, okay, you go, of course, if you have less expert audience, your presentation is going to be long, and you need to explain everything. But for more expert audience, or for short presentations, okay, you're going to have the number of slides relative to the time will be different here. Now, if your presentation has open discussion in the middle and you are allowing interruption, okay, whether this is good or bad depends on the mode and operation and what topic. And so if there is discussion, you expect to have less slides because it's going to consume a lot of time. Never skip slides. It's not good to prepare slide and then start skipping in front of people. You can use hide, and then if you find that you need them, then you can show them, because showing that you start skipping, it will show that you're not optimally organized, because whatever you prepared is not what you are presenting. So it's good to have some backup slides and make things look naturally. Okay, then add extra slide at the end for question and answer. If you think that people would be interested in something, you're not sure, you can add it at the end. How to improve your presentation? Now, I'll give some tips. First, practice with a timer at least once, and then practice for the exact time. Okay, what if you need more time? What if you are given more time? Or what if somebody asks you that because of emergency, we would like you to finish early? Or somebody says that we all know these things, please skip. So it's good to have 3 plans, A, B, and C. You have what if you present more, what if you, especially if this is something important like your PhD, final defense, or thesis, then you don't want to be embarrassed. You want to have well prepared for all cases. Attend others' presentation. Usually if it's a conference or if it is a competition, you'll find people presenting. So make sure you attend, learn from their mistakes. So you are the one who is sitting here, and then look at their mistakes, what is good to the point, not just their mistakes, what are the good points that you are there doing, and then avoid the first and do the second. All right? So now, if you avoid their mistakes and then do what's good that in terms of what they are doing, then your presentation will be fantastic. Arrive early, come early to the presentation. Okay, and then adjust the venue and surroundings. If you find the table is not comfortable, or you are left-handed, right-handed, just do whatever is needed for you. Check the connections and then chat with the audience. That will make you relax, especially if you're not used to presentations, and will give some more confidence to the audience. All right, here are some general tips, general presentation tips. First, do not be nervous. People are attending to learn, at least most of them. Audience are sympathetic. They want you to succeed. And if you have an examining committee or a competition, then remember that their objective is just to test your knowledge. Now, change your tone. Speak loudly at key points and normal at general points. You can use loud voice, or you can also use pauses. So pause to emphasize important points whenever needed. So either you speak loudly or you pause. These are 2 different techniques to attract attention. Now, if you are presenting video, and this is sometimes good, especially if the video is not very long, it should be reasonably short, and then you highlight the important points. So you don't just let the audience watch a long video. You can make the short points and then highlight what is there in this video. More tips, more presentation tips. Going over time does not mean you are a good presenter, does not mean that you know a lot. In fact, it just shows that you are not very well organized. So don't assume that your topic is very important by just going over time. Engage the audience, ask questions, pause, and if you can get them involved in the middle of the presentation, that's usually encouraged. Admit if you do not know all the information. It's not a problem that if somebody asks a question, just to say that I'm not sure. And then smile and make jokes, but don't force it. So if the topic is not appropriate, you're speaking about death rate or so because of the coronavirus or so, then maybe it's not the right time to smile. But in general, smiling is should be there, and you should make some relatively reasonable joke, but do not force it. Okay? Make it look natural. Presentations are not direct cut and paste from their paper, and this is very common mistake. Sometimes they just even keep the numbers and headings. And no, presentation should be a modified version. Our ability to understand through vision and hearing is different than our way of processing printed data or papers. Now, presentation skills are different from public speaking skills, and this is something I learned. There are some students who are having YouTube channels with maybe hundreds of thousands of followers. But I would think that these are very acquainted with videos and they can just present. But it turns out to be not correct. Okay, to have a good presentation, you should be very technically correct, or you should be excellent in your technical background. So just being able to speak and not knowing what you're going to speak about make you in a very weak position. So remember that even if you are having good public relations speaking skills, to present technical information, you should be very confident by being very knowledgeable in that specific field, or on what you're going to present at least. Now, these are some tips about PowerPoint presentation specifically. So these are some good ideas. Limit transitions within the slides. I mean, animations and moving from one place to another. Use the same background on each slide. That would be more consistent. Use bulleted keywords, no full paragraphs. Align bullets to the left. Have a backup. Very important. Sometimes you work very hard in your presentation, but then there's a problem with the USB, problem with the internet connection or so. So make sure that you have some backup plans. Now, time to conclude, time to listen to your input. Okay, I'm asking a few questions here. Is humor acceptable in presentations? Second question, what are the common mistakes in presentation that you yourself observe? What are the things that you want to emphasize? So we have 3 questions. Do you think humors are acceptable in presentations? And when and when not? And then what are the common mistakes in presentation that I did not mention and you want to add? And finally, things you want to emphasize in making presentations. So let's conclude with this humor, how to end the presentation with a style. Ending the presentation is as important as starting it. So I will leave you with these 3 questions. Please share your input in the comment sections and follow up with us with our research skills series. Thank you very much.